there, welcome to the closing bell on the 11th of December. Only a couple of weeks left in the year, and it does feel like we might be heading towards the quiet period where volatility really dies off. I mean, our market, the ASX 200, I'll show you in a minute, it has been stuck in a range for 6 months now, going nowhere fast. We definitely have a line in the sand beneath the market. I've explained that to you. If the ASX heads below 7,000, watch out. But it's not doing that yet, is it? And perhaps we're in for a very quiet period. But we are seeing a bit of profit taking across the board. We're seeing some profit taking in the tech stocks in particular. The market darling's still holding up, but there's plenty of stocks out there that are just consistently drifting down. And I don't think where the ASX 200 is really reflects the fact that a lot of those mid and small cap stocks are actually selling off in a straight line. So I'll give you a bit of a look at that and just show you the key levels in the S&P that I want you to look for, because you'll know more than me whether the US inflation figures came out nasty last night and what happened in the US. I'll show you where I wanted the week to finish, but you will know where it finished. So let's just have a look at a few of the charts and see what we can find. So this is the ASX 200 over the last few years. And I guess the main point I've already shown you many times, this old crash high. This is the area below which I'm a bit wary what's going to happen. Expecting prices could actually have a sharp fall, but they're not falling yet, are they? And the fact is, if we look at this period, this is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, coming up to 7 months where price action has been absolutely just stuck in a range. So there's not much you can say about markets when they're really going nowhere for 7 months. It's a very difficult trading environment. If you're finding it hard trading and making money out there, don't be surprised by that. I think everyone's in the same boat. And I guess my warning would be, often tops in markets look like this, where they have months and months of just going nowhere. The big boys and girls are selling to the unsuspecting punters who think the trend's up and everything's looking fine. So often those really long periods can be a precursor to a bit of a dip. So that's, I guess, what I'm thinking at the moment, is that this long sideways consolidation could end up leading to that false break and a bit of a sell-off. But if we move on to the US market, and the main thing I want to point out about the US market is we're looking at the weekly chart. I mean, this is why I've been just short-term bearish. Now, the trend is up. There's no doubt about that. We've got the 10-week exponential, that red line, well and truly above the 20-week simple moving average, which is, the red line, well above that blue line, the 20-week simple moving average. So the trend is still up on the weekly chart. The only thing I was focused on was we had the really large volume week last week, which created the weekly sell pivot. And the weekly sell pivot is just that first sign that things could be turning down for a short term, where you have prices closing below the low of the highest price candle in the move. And that's all that weekly sell pivot is. It's not a statement that markets are definitely selling off from here, but for markets to sell off, you need to start with one of those sell pivots. So it's just, for me, that first sign to be a little bit wary. And that's why you will know where prices closed last night. But if we get a close in that S&P 500 above the high of that weekly sell pivot candle, well, that will be a weekly buy pivot. And that will be a weekly buy pivot within that weekly uptrend. So then, things are looking bullish from there. And we could be on for that, big rush into the end of the year, the Santa rally. It could be on still. So that level, just to point out that for you, is 46.70, let's say, in that S&P. So if last night prices closed above 46.70, that will confirm the weekly buy pivot. I will back off from my bearish call for now and allow the market to carry on to the upside. But if prices didn't close above that level, let's say the inflation figures came out pretty hot and the market sold off, that would mean that weekly sell pivot is still live. And as long as that weekly sell pivot is live, there's still a chance that we are at the beginning of a bit of a downturn. And all we're seeing is what happens so often when you initially have prices turning down, they're really great at shaking everyone out by running back towards the high before actually having the big move to the downside. And we could just be in that phase of the shakeout before prices really turn down. So that's why it's quite an important moment where prices did close last night. Now, I just wanted to finish off with just a few stocks to give you a sense of sort of what's going on out there, that it isn't all just rallying madly to the upside or holding up near the highs. There is actually a section of the market that is just selling off pretty steadily. So I think under the hood, the breadth of the market isn't necessarily that fabulous at the moment. So looking at Nearmap, this was a market darling. They've had a massive rally back a few years ago, and the heat came out of them for sure. And look, it's been a bit of a struggle for them over the last year. But you can see, they've dropped from $2.20 down to $1.50 just in the last month or two. So there is some, pretty strong selling pressure out there in that stock. And of course, you probably know Afterpay, Square is selling off pretty hard in the States, and now Afterpay is pretty closely connected, of course, to what the price of Square is. And, that has been hammered down from, $130 down to below 100. And a few of those other buy now, pay later stocks like Zip, etc., they've been selling off pretty hard too. I'll even show you Zip's share price. This one has come off from $14 down to a price of $5 over this last year. So it really hasn't been a one-way street for many stocks out there. It has been a pretty tough trading environment. And this is Live Tiles. These guys, I probably wouldn't even buy them at the price they're at now. But you can see, this one down towards, below 10 cents now, and looking like it's in a bit of a death spiral there. Not looking too good at all. If we're looking at Appen, another tech darling, this one has come off pretty hard. Look, above $40 and hammered in a straight line, down below $10 now. So there's plenty of people hurting out there in a few stocks that just haven't carried on with it. And there is some pretty strong selling pressure. So yeah, it's a bit of a story of two markets out there at the moment. There are the ones that are hot and holding up there pretty well. But there is a whole section of the market that I've seen just months of very strong selling pressure. And it hasn't really let up. So I guess the question is, will the rest of the market tip over as well? It's certainly a difficult trading environment out there. And I think as we head towards Christmas, look, let's lighten up. And as I've said recently, there's no need to be trying to get blood from a stone. If there's no money to be made, you just sit back and you take it easy. And for me, I've taken quite a bit of profits out of the stocks that we've been holding for the last year or two. We're still exposed to upside if the markets rally, but I'm not too phased if we see a bit of a correction. And I think that's the attitude you have to have at the moment, with our market really dead as a doornail after 7 months going nowhere, and the US looking a bit tricky. And I'm very interested to see what happens tonight with those inflation figures and how the market reacts. But still a little bit nervous about what happens over the next month or two. So really taking it pretty easy out there. All right, well, that's enough for this week. I will come back with more next week. Cheers. And and just make sure you click the link below the videos and find out what I'm up to. Australian Small-Cap Investigator and Pivot Trader. And hopefully I'll get you on board one day and we can trade together. All right, cheers. I'll come back with more next week.